Hello, my name is Hannah Hinojosa, and today I'm presenting my stance on one of the most controversial issues in modern healthcare. Should physicians be allowed to deny patient care based on their faith or personal beliefs? At first glance, it might seem reasonable to allow doctors some moral freedom. After all, physicians are humans too. They have values, faith, beliefs, and these things shape who they are. But when personal belief begins to interfere with a patient's access to care, especially in urgent or essential medical situations, there can be a serious problem. I firmly believe that physicians should not be allowed to deny care based off of personal or religious beliefs, because in doing so, it violates the very foundation of medical ethics, equal treatment, patient autonomy, and duty to care for all. In the United States, some states already have what are called conscience clauses. These laws allow healthcare providers to refuse certain services like contraception, abortion, or gender-affirming care if they claim moral or religious objections. On paper, this might sound like protection for religious freedom, but in practice, it creates gaps in healthcare access, particularly for marginalized communities, women, and LGBTQ+ individuals. Our job as an advisory committee is to decide whether faith-based refusal should be legally permitted, and after researching the issue across multiple ethical, legal, and practice dimensions, the answer is clear. Patients' rights have and must take precedence over personal belief. Let's begin with ethics, the heart of medicine. Every doctor takes the oath, do no harm. According to medical ethicist George Annas in the New England Journal of Medicine, once a physician accepts the responsibility to treat patients, they also accept limits on their personal discretion. Medicine is a public trust, not a private moral ground. When a physician denies care, they're not simply making a personal choice. They're creating real harm by delaying or denying necessary treatment. For example, refusing to prescribe birth control, treat a transgender patient, or assist in end-of-life care doesn't express belief. It denies another human being the care they are legally and medically entitled to receive. Annas emphasizes that personal conscience must end where human patient harm begins. If you cannot provide care without moral conflict, you have the right to choose a different profession, but do not abandon the but not the right to abandon patients in need. Professional obligation and equality in healthcare. My second argument is about professional responsibility and equality. Physicians do not private citizens acting on impulse. They are licensed professionals operating within a code of ethic that places patients' welfare above personal ideology. In the landmark JMA article, Julie and Cantor Kenji Yoshino, 2006, argue that doctors voluntarily enter a field that limits their autonomy for the sake of their patients. When someone becomes a doctor, they accept an ethical duty to treat everyone, not just those whose beliefs align with theirs. They write that the refusal to treat based on the conscience may serve the doctor's values, but it violates the patient's right to care. If faith-based refusal was normalized, we could open the door to dangerous discrimination. Imagine a doctor refusing to treat a same-sex couple, or a Muslim refusing to care for a Jewish patient, or vice versa. Once we say belief can justify denial, where do we draw the line? Equality in healthcare isn't optional. It's a core civil right. Now, to expand on this, to deny treatment based on personal or religious beliefs sets a dangerous precedent that threatens equal access to healthcare. If faith-based refusal was normalized, it could create a slippery slope where prejudice could be disguised as conscience. It becomes easy to imagine situations where a doctor refuses to treat, as previously stated, maybe a Jewish patient or a same-sex couple patient, or a Christian physician refusing to treat a patient seeking reproductive services. Once belief is allowed to determine who receives treatment, there is no principled way to limit such refusals. And the healthcare system risks factoring into pockets of discrimination. Equality in healthcare is not optional. It is a foundational civil right that ensures every individual, regardless to identity or background, that they receive the care that they need. The integrity of medical professionals depends on the promise that patients will never be turned away because of who they are or what they believe. Next, real-world harm and public health impact. Let's look at what happens when faith-based refusal is allowed. According to Brooke Eberle and Thomas McCormick, 2002, in the Journal of Clinical Ethics, refusal of care cases have led to patients being denied contraception, reproductive services, and even emergency procedures after miscarriages. In rural areas or small towns where options are limited, a single doctor's refusal can leave an entire populations without access to essential health care. Eberle and McCormick emphasize that while conscience is important, public health must come first. The role of a physician is to heal, not to moralize. Similarly, Sarah Rosenbaum in Public Health Reports found that so-called conscience clause often lack mechanisms to guarantee timely referrals. As a result, patients, especially women and low-income individuals, are left stranded. These findings make one thing clear. Faith-based refusal doesn't just inconvenience people, it endangers them. Based on the evidence, the most ethical and practical recommendation is to reject any legislation that allows physicians to deny care based on faith or personal belief. Instead, we must strengthen policies that guarantee universal access to all legal medical services, required transparency. Physicians must disclose any objections when entering a patient's or specialty, not at the moment of care. Mandate reliable referral systems to ensure the patient care is never delayed or denied. Prohibit all forms of discrimination, especially against vulnerable or marginalized groups, and hold institutions accountable, ensuring that personal belief never obstructs essential health care. Physicians must remember, a medical license is not a personal shield. It is a commitment to uphold health and dignity to every patient. Legal precedent, human rights, and the dangers of ideological medicine. Before I move into the closing statement, I want to expand on why allowing healthcare refusal is not only ethical, but legally and socially dangerous. In the United States, healthcare is intertwined with civil rights law. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act the Affordable Care Act, Section 1557. Numerous federal protections all prohibit discrimination in medical settings. These laws are created because historically, marginalized groups were routinely denied care based on their race, religion, gender, or identity. Allowing physicians to deny care based on their personal belief could undermine decades of legal progress designed to protect vulnerable populations. Legal scholars such as Elizabeth Sepper, 2017, warned that conscience-based refusal laws create loopholes that allow discrimination to re-enter the medical system under the guise of morality. These types of laws expand It could weaken anti-discrimination protections in other areas of public life as well. Healthcare is not an isolated domain. Its policies influence national standards of fairness, rights, and equal treatment. When we make exceptions in medicine, these exceptions often spread. There is also important international perspective. The World Health Organization and the United Nations have both emphasized that access to healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. When providers deny care, especially essential services, they are violating this global standard. Faith-based refusal turns healthcare into a moral lottery when patients' access becomes unpredictable and arbitrary. This is incompatible with the principles of modern medical science. Finally, we must consider the practical danger of ideological medicine. History has shown through examples such as forced sterilizations, radicalized medical experiments, and discriminatory treatment practices that when personal ideology is allowed to override experiments and discriminatory treatments, patients that have personal ideology are often driven by belief rather than evidence. The door opens to abuse, inconsistent treatment, preventable harm. Preventing faith-based care refusal can protect not only the individual patients, but the moral integrity of the entire healthcare system. In closing, I want to emphasize one thing. Medicine cannot function if personal ideology outweighs patient well-being. To deny care on religious or moral grounds is not an act of faith. It is a breach of professional and ethical duty. Our healthcare system depends on trust, compassion, and consistency. Every patient must know that when they seek care, their identity, beliefs, or circumstances will not determine whether they receive treatment. This debate is not about limiting religious freedom. It's about protecting human rights. It is about ensuring that medical decisions are based on science, compassion, and equality, not personal beliefs. So my recommendation is clear and resolute. No physician should be allowed to deny care based on their faith or personal belief. Protecting patients' rights is not anti-religious. It is profoundly pro-human. It preserves the integrity of medicine, safeguards public health, and affirms that dignity of every single person who walks into a clinic hoping to be healed. Thank you.